Hi everybody, and welcome back to yet another edition of Collecting Canadian Cavalry and Armour. Today we're going to look at a few different aspects. We're going to look at some old postcards. We're going to look at some advertising with tanks and armor and that type of thing on them. And we're going to look at a few group photos. So come along for the ride. Okay, so we're going to start off with just a few of the postcards that I have in my collection, some of the more interesting ones. This first one here is a colorized black and white photo of the 15th Alberta Light Horse. And as you guys remember from a previous episode, these guys were very active, as the name would say, out in Alberta. A very good unit and lots of stuff going on. They're still around as the Alberta Light Horse, or South Alberta Light Horse, the Sally Ann's. So anyway, or Sally Horse. Anyway, kind of a neat little postcard. Unfortunately, there's nothing written on the back, but it's kind of neat for the cavalry tradition. Now, along with that, we have this very unique one that shows the band of the 15th Alberta Light Horse. And as you remember from previous episode, we did take a look at one of the band tunics from these guys. Now, interestingly, on the back of the postcard, it is dated September 18th, 1907, right there on the back. So that really places this photo in that early era before the First World War, showing the militia cavalry units out there. So you can really take a good look at how the uniforms and things were worn. So postcards like this, guys, are fantastic. So you see a good look at how the uniforms were actually worn. So we're going to go off to this next one here, which is a patrol from the 3rd Prince of Wales Canadian Dragoons. Again, it's a colorized photo, which is kind of neat, looking at the uniforms and everything. And on the back here, we have, there is some writing. And I'll have to take a look and see if we can find a date here for you guys. I got to put on the old spectaculars here. This is August 10th, 1909, right there. So here's a nice period photo of the 3rd Dragoons on patrol. See, stuff like this is great. Now, wouldn't this be fantastic if it was blown up into a larger type of print that you could, frame nicely and add to your artwork on your wall of your collecting room. Stuff like this is really cool. Now we have another photo here of a soldier on his horse. Now unfortunately I've got no other information on this, as the back of the postcard is blank. But it appears that there may be a cap badge, so one of these days I'll have to get out a microscope or something, see if I can try to figure out what that is. But as you can see, a nice period photograph out there at a militia camp. Cool stuff. And this last one we have is a postcard of a painting. The postcard is called Worthy, and it's the Armor of Distinction by Sylvia Picotta, right? That wonderful artist that spent a lot of time in Afghanistan and did a lot of artwork connected with our war over there. And as you can see here is a nice Leopard 2 on patrol in the dusty environment of Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. So like I said, there's just a few of the postcards that I was able to dig out and show you guys. But again, postcards are a nice facet of collecting. They don't cost a hell of a lot of money, and you can get some really interesting, cool old period photographs that were turned into postcards. Now, some of the other nice ones are the studio photographs that you can get of the individual troopers in their uniforms. So let's move on to something else. Okay, now everybody realizes their tanks are cool as hell and everybody notices them. Well, probably because they're so big. But they also work well on advertising. And in this one here, you can see in this advertising for buying victory bonds, you can see a nice rendition of probably a Canadian Grizzly tank, or the very similar to the M4 Sherman. And you can see here how they're using that to get people to donate, their scraps, scrap rubber and metal and all that type of thing, and turn them into tanks. And again, really neat piece of Second World War era advertising. And you get a lot of these things out of magazines and that type of thing. You'll find them at antique shows and in different shops where guys will have, sell advertising of different types. And you can, there's stuff on trucks and on Jeeps, but they're no way as cool as tanks. So here's a nice one but it incorporates victory bonds as well as armor. So kind of cool. Now this next one, very near and dear to my heart. Found this one here, and as you can see, it's Essex Regiment tank, right? The forerunner of the Windsor Regiment, my old regiment. And it says, and it's got one of my other favorite things, whiskey. Yeah. So anyway, here we go. You see a nice rendition of the black beret, and as we know, the Essex tank were the first ones to wear the black beret, along with the tanker's pistol and holster there. Those holsters are actually fairly hard to find, and when they're a tad expensive, a few $100 a piece. And then we have the glass there. I wouldn't mind finding one of those glasses, for my collection, but I have a feeling it was just some artist that made that up. But they talk about the traditions of the Royal Canadian Armoured Corps, or at the time the Canadian Armoured Corps, and the hard drinking, hard fighting men. And here we go, Essex Regiment tank with some G&W whiskey, 5-star. I'm gonna have to track down some of that and see if it's still any good. I'll keep you posted. So the next one here, this is actually the front cover of the Star Weekly, which was published in Toronto for a whopping 10 cents. Back then it was probably buy a few things with 10 cents back in the day. But you see a very nice artist rendition of the M3 lead tanks. And during the war, and for training, I should say, the Fort Garry Horse used these M3 Lees, so it's kind of neat to see this here on the front of the Star Weekly. And again, you can, the more you look, the more you dig through, you find, some more of this stuff. And if you want to focus just on, tank, cavalry advertising, it'd be kind of neat. But this would also be a very nice accent to your collecting room. Like, I know sometimes wall space would be at a premium because you've got frames of badges and everything else up there. But this would be nice, a little accent there on the wall of your collecting room. So just 3 examples of different advertising print stuff that has tanks or an armored context to it. So see guys, there's lots of things that you can collect, all dealing with Canadian Cavalry and Armour. And this again is because I'm a bit of a nut. Here's this another bit that you can do. Let's take a look at some bigger photos. So now guys, we're going to take a quick look at some of the unit photos that I have in my collection. We're not going to look at everything, but we're going to take a look at 3 that are kind of interesting. So this first one here appears to be pivotally one company of the 1st Canadian Tank Battalion. And it's really neat to see everybody all bunched up in there. I'm saying it's probably just one company because I think the whole battalion was much larger than that. But this is a nice way to frame it. I had an extra badge, so I put that in there as it matches everything else. I just thought it'd be a nice touch. But something like that would be very good for your First World War armor collection. So just it's really neat when you can track down some of these old unit photos, especially the early mechanization in the Canadian Army, First World War. Now this next one we're going to look at, it's quite long, and it is damaged, as you'll see, but it was such a rare unit that I just had to get it. So let's take a look at that one right now. Okay guys, as you can see, this one is a work in progress, and you can see there's a lot of water damage over here on the right side. Unfortunately, these things happen. Maybe, people's basements gets flooded or whatever. Now, this particular photo is of the Eaton's Motor Machine Gun Battery. Again, it's a very rare unit, but early Canadian mechanization, which is, again, a fantastic find. I got it fell off of eBay. I believe it was eBay, or it could have been one of the collector Facebook pages. But as you can see here, quite a long frame. And like I said, it's a work in progress. I have to get it properly matted and that type of thing. So don't beat me up too badly on this one. But trying to find a frame for these things can be challenging, to say the least. So what I did is I looked around and found that, to get a custom frame this size, because it's an odd size, was going to cost me a couple of $100. So what I did, being a cheapskate, is I went and I bought a full-length mirror. Took the mirror out, had a piece of glass cut at a local glass company that would fit right into this thing here. So for about $35, I was able to get a frame with the glass. And then I just used a old piece of paneling in the back. And like I said, don't beat me up too bad. This is a work in progress. But I wanted to show you guys this thing because it's such a hard to find unit. The Eaton motor machine gun battery, as you know, is one of the units that use the autocar, the armored autocars, and made a lot of decisive engagements during the First World War, along with the whole Canadian motor machine gun brigade. So fantastic find to get something like this as far as early Canadian mechanized armor. All right, guys, we're going to jump forward to the Second World War, and this is a group photo of the 30th Recce, the reserve element that stayed here in Canada, continued to recruit and train during the war. The commanding officer, I believe, was Lieutenant Colonel Stewart, veteran of the First World War, who was deemed to be a little bit too old to go overseas in the Second World War, so he commanded the local unit down here. And this photo was taken at Thames Valley Camp in London, and which is now a golf course in London. I'd love to hit that place with a metal detector and dig up a whole bunch of badges and buttons and stuff like that, but I have a feeling that I wouldn't want to spend the night in the London jail. So anyway, guys, but again, sometimes with these smaller unit photos, that's straight out like this, you can buy, the frame's already made. It's only when you get these really long ones that are almost 4 feet long that you have to get very imaginative. So 30 Recce, and for you keen-eyed guys that notice my shirt, we've got the 30th Reconnaissance, 30th Recce. Now this, actually, the graphic was redone by my friend Danny Heppel, who spent a lot of time with the Royal Canadian Dragoons. We did our tour in Boston together. Hopefully we'll see him in October. But he ended up going on to become the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Regiment de Hull in Gatineau. So great guy, tons of experience, and great graphic artist. He does a lot of work. But this original design was found in the Sergeant's Mess in England, where the 30th Recce guys were hanging out while they were doing their motor vehicle assembly unit stuff. So it's a historic design from the 30th Recce guys. You gotta love them. So anyway, guys, like I said, a few of the large unit photos. Always interesting to track down. You can see them, you find them, at different badge shows and that kind of stuff, but to find the right unit sometimes can be a challenge. Now, I know my good friend Tom Tweeny has one for the Sergeant's Mess from the 17th Hussars out of Montreal, and right now I wouldn't mind having it, but you've got other stuff you got to allocate some money to. So that's always the challenge. Come on, Lottos, 649 or Lotto Max. Anyway, you guys, large unit photos. So I hope you like this episode. A little bit eclectic, looking at different things. But the neat thing is, like when you're collecting, even if it's just postcards, Cavalry, Armour, whatever, they're easily stored in a binder. If you want some of the nicer ones, you can, maybe put them in a frame or something like that, put them up. But it's keeping the collecting game, maybe you're short of funds or whatever. But these things are always fun to hunt down and put into, like I said, put into your collection. As far as the group photos, regimental photos, different squadrons, different regiments and stuff, those are always neat to find. And again, as I mentioned, the challenge a lot of times is to get these things unrolled and finding frames that are big enough for them. And anyway, I hope you guys, everybody like this. And maybe, help you take a look at a different aspect of collecting Canadian Cavalry and Armour that may have been overlooked before. Well, like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy collecting, everyone.